They didn't just steal her heirlooms, they replaced priceless history with lies right under her nose in her own home. Imagine that, your life's work, meticulously curated, vanishing piece by piece, swapped for fakes, while the people you trusted most smiled to your face. It's almost unbelievable, isn't it? I'm Victoria, and the stories I share here, they dig deep, they expose the darkness, but also the incredible strength people find when pushed to the absolute edge. Today's story, it's about that kind of edge, and what happens when someone you'd never expect, decides to push back hard. I recently spent time with a woman, we'll call her Elena Vance, a name that suited her perfectly. Elegant, refined, a retired archivist, sharp as a tack, even in her late 70s, known for her precision, her almost photographic memory, may be seen by some as a little eccentric, a little too trusting perhaps, especially of her family. What happened to Elena? It wasn't just theft, it was annihilation, an attempt to erase her legacy, her sanity, her very identity, orchestrated by those she loved. But they underestimated Elena Vance, they underestimated her mind, her meticulous nature, and they certainly underestimated her fury. You absolutely need to hear how she dismantled their entire scheme, piece by painstaking piece. Stick with me. Hit that subscribe button right now. You won't want to miss a single detail of Elena's comeback. Elena asked me to share her story, in her own words, so let's let her speak. Listen closely. This is Elena. Transition to Elena's eye perspective. My life was built on paper, on ink, on the whispers of the past, captured in letters, documents, diaries. For 50 years I was an archivist, handling fragile fragments of history, preserving them, understanding them. It wasn't just a job, it was my breath, my soul. My collection started small, gifts from mentors, finds in dusty shops. Gradually, it grew, rare correspondence, signed manuscripts, documents that shed light on forgotten corners of history. Each piece held a story, a weight, a connection. It was invaluable, not just in money, though the appraisals were staggering, but in meaning. This was my legacy, the sum of my life's passion. I lived quietly, comfortably, in the house my late husband Arthur and I had shared, filled with books and silence and the scent of old paper. Arthur understood my passion, he encouraged it. After he passed, the collection became even more central, a link to him, to our shared life. My niece, Brenda, she was my closest living relative. Her parents, my brother and his wife, gone too soon. I'd always tried to be there for her, helped with her education, listened to her troubles, which seemed plentiful, especially after she started dating Chad. Brenda visited often. At first, it was nice, company, someone to share a meal with. She seemed interested in my work, asked questions about the documents. Chad came along sometimes, slick, charming, a little too eager to please. I didn't entirely trust him, but Brenda seemed happy, so I bit my tongue. They started helping out around the house, running errands, fixing things. Brenda would brew tea, chat about her day. Chad would offer to organize shelves, dust the display cases where some of my most prized items were kept. Looking back, the access I gave them, the trust, it was absolute, foolish. It began subtly, so subtly, I doubt anyone else would have noticed. Small things out of place, a book reshelved incorrectly, a drawer slightly ajar. I chalked it up to my own agging memory, a lapse in concentration. Then, the appointments. Brenda started insisting I was forgetting things, important things, doctor's visits I didn't recall making, bills she claimed were overdue. She'd show me confirmations on her phone, look concerned, suggest maybe we should simplify things, maybe she should help manage my accounts. Just to take the load off Aunt Ellie, she'd say, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Chad backed her up, always nodding, agreeing. Elena, you've worked so hard, let Brenda help, you deserve to relax. relax, while they were tightening the noose. Medication changes happened too. Brenda started managing my prescriptions, said the doctor recommended adjustments. I felt foggy sometimes, tired, more forgetful than usual, which played right into their hands, didn't it? They were building a narrative, paving the way. The real horror began with the collection, my sanctuary, my life's work. I remember picking up a letter, one I knew intimately, pennied by a prominent suffragette. The paper felt wrong, the ink just slightly off, the familiar watermarks seemed flatter, less distinct. I dismissed it, eye strain, poor lighting, denial is a powerful opiate. But then another piece, a manuscript fragment, the parchment's texture wasn't quite right, the agging looked forced, artificial. A cold dread started to seep into my bones, replacing the fog with something sharp and terrifying. I started looking closer, secretly, when Brenda and Chad weren't there, pulling out items they had dusted or organized, comparing them to my own detailed records, my archival notes, my photographs. The substitutions were masterful, high-quality forgeries, good enough to fool a casual observer, maybe even a general dealer, but not me, not with my asterisk documents. I knew their souls. Piece by piece, they were swapping them out, my priceless originals, replaced with convincing fakes. Where were the real ones going? The scale of it, the audacity, it took my breath away. They weren't just stealing, they were meticulously destroying my legacy, erasing the tangible evidence of my life's work, while simultaneously painting me as incompetent, senile, an old woman losing her grip, ripe for conservatorship, so they could gain full control of everything, my home, my finances, what remained of my collection. The financial drain started subtly too, Brenda helping with online banking, small amounts missing at first, then larger ones, explanations about market downturns, unexpected expenses. Then came the loan applications, in my name, using my identity, documents I supposedly signed, signatures forged, expertly. Chad must have practiced. I felt hollowed out, violated, not just robbed, but desecrated. The trust I'd given Brenda, my own flesh and blood, twisted into a weapon against me, the emotional betrayal, cut deeper than any financial loss, deeper than the theft of paper and ink. It was a theft of connection, of love, of history itself, my personal history, entwined with the historical documents they pilfered. I felt adrift, powerless, the fog they induced, both chemical and psychological. It had done its work. For a time, I almost believed them. Maybe I was losing my mind. Maybe this was just the cruel reality of agging, discarded, deceived, alone. The rage came later. It wasn't a hot flash, but a slow, freezing burn, ignited by a single, careless mistake on their part. They thought they were so clever, so thorough. One evening, Brenda was bustling around, making tea. Chad was fixing a loose floorboard near my main archives room, a room they increasingly tried to keep me out of. Too dusty, Aunt Ellie. Let us handle it. After they left, a sliver of something caught my eye near the display case holding what was supposed to be a rare 17th century land grant, one of my most treasured items. It was a tiny fragment of modern adhesive label backing, the kind used on cheap replica seals, not the brittle, aged wax of the original. They hadn't just swapped the document, they'd swapped the asterisk seal, and they'd been sloppy, just this once. That tiny scrap of plastic, it was like a lightning strike, cutting through the manufactured fog, the doubt, the despair. It wasn't me, it was asterisk them. And in that moment, the grief, the shock, it didn't vanish, but it crystallized into something else, something cold, hard, diamond sharp. Furies. Not the shouting kind, not the weeping kind, the quiet, meticulous, calculating fury of an archivist betrayed. They had used my perceived weaknesses, my age, my trust, my quiet nature, against me. Fine. Now I would use my asterisk strengths, my knowledge, my precision, my memory, and this newfound, glacial rage against asterisk them. They wanted to erase my legacy. I would ensure they were the ones erased. That night I didn't sleep, I planned. My mind, suddenly clear, sharper than it had been in months, the lingering effects of whatever they'd put in my tea, burned away by adrenaline and purpose. First, documentation, meticulous, undeniable, proof my archivist training kicked in. I started photographing everything, the forgeries, knotting the discrepancies, the sloppy seal replacement, the inconsistencies in ink and paper, cross-referencing with my original acquisition records, dates, provenance details, creating a detailed log, dates of their visits, their specific actions, overheard snippets of conversation. Financial statements showing the unauthorized withdrawals, the loan applications. I installed hidden cameras, tiny ones, easily concealed amongst the clutter of a collector's home, focused on the archives room, the display cases, my desk. I needed to know the full extent, I needed to see them, in the act. And I needed allies, but not the police, not yet. This required finesse, a certain, poetic justice. I thought of Arthur, my late husband. He wasn't just supportive, he had connections, old friends, in diverse fields. One name surfaced, Julian Croft, an antiquarian book dealer, but more than that, a man known for his discretion, and his network, dealing with the sometimes murky world of rare collectibles. He knew people who could trace things, even things sold, illicitly. Getting a message to Julian, without alerting Brenda and Chad, was the first challenge. I used an old method, a coded letter, sent via a trusted neighbor, pretending it was a donation query for a local historical society. Julian, thankfully, remembered our old codes. He responded quickly, discreetly, a late-night call from a burner phone, his voice gravelly, concerned. I laid it out, briefly, the forgeries, the gaslighting, the financial theft, the suspicion about the originals ending up somewhere dark. Julian was silent for a moment, then, "Elena, this is monstrous, but, sadly, not entirely unheard of. The greed, it corrupts." He paused. "Okay, tell me exactly what you need." I needed tracing, the originals, where did they go, who bought them, especially the most valuable pieces. Julian understood, the black market for historical documents, its niche, but lucrative, often linked to other unsavory collectors, and sometimes organized crime. It requires care. Let me make some inquiries, quietly. While Julian worked his channels, I focused on Brenda and Chad, playing my part, the slightly confused, increasingly frail old woman. I let them help me, watch them on the hidden cameras, their smug glances, their whispers when they thought I couldn't hear, discussing price points for items they hadn't even stolen yet, planning trips, spending my money, my pilfered legacy. The footage was damning, clear shots of Chad carefully removing an original letter, replacing it with a fake, Brenda altering numbers on a bank statement she was showing me, their conversations laced with contempt and greed. Julian called back a week later. "Got a hit, Elena, a big one, your suffragette letters, and the 17th century grant. They surfaced through an online forum, known for discreet sales, sold to a known intermediary, probably heading to a private collector overseas, untraceable now, likely." My heart sank, lost, forever. But, Julian continued, the intermediary, he mentioned the seller, bragged about the quality, said the source, a young couple, amateurs, but they had more, including, potentially, a specific piece, very rare, a signed first edition poem by a rather obscure Victorian poetess. Does that ring a bell? It rang loudly. It was a piece I hadn't realized was gone yet, small, easily overlooked, but incredibly valuable to the right collector, and Chad, in his arrogance, must have mentioned it. Yes, I whispered, I know the piece. Good, Julian said, because this intermediary, he's greedy and chatty. If someone approached him, the *right* someone, with the right offer for that specific poem, he might just lead them back to your niece and her charming boyfriend. An idea sparked, cold, audacious. Perfect. Julian, I said, my voice steady now, I need you to help me create a persona, a buyer, wealthy, ruthless, a collector who doesn't ask questions, someone who would pay an exorbitant price for that specific poem. Julian was quiet again, then a low chuckle. Elena Vance, you always did have a flair for the dramatic. All right, let's build your phantom collector. We crafted her, Madame Cygnus, mysterious, European, infinitely wealthy, known only through encrypted messages, dealing through proxies, willing to pay triple the market value for unique items, no questions asked. Julian, through his network, planted the seeds, whispers of Madame Cygnus, her interest in obscure Victoriana, her bottomless pockets. Then, as we waited, it didn't take long. Greed is predictable. An encrypted message reached Julian's proxy, an offer, not the poem itself, but information about its current owner for a finder's fee. The description matched Chad perfectly. Madame Cygnus agreed. The fee was transferred, an untraceable crypto payment. The intermediary provided details, a secure messaging handle used by Chad. Now the bait. Madame Cygnus contacted Chad directly, expressing keen interest in the poem, mentioning details only the true owner or the thief would know, details I provided Julian, obscure marginalia, a specific binding flaw. Chad took the bait, hook, line and sinker. He confirmed he possessed it, bragged about its condition, ready to sell, but only in person, cash only, high security. He was paranoid, but also blinded by the potential payout. The figure Madame Cygnus offered was life-changing, enough to disappear, start over. He named the place, a private room, in an upscale but discreet hotel known for valuing client privacy. He named the time, 2 weeks hence. 2 weeks to prepare the endgame. This wasn't just about getting Chad arrested, or recovering one poem. This was about exposure, annihilation, the way they had tried to annihilate me. I contacted Julian again. The meeting is set, but I'm not involving the police directly, not for the initial confrontation. Elena, what are you planning? I'm planning a private viewing, I said. I need experts, document specialists, forgery analysts, people who can instantly recognize the fraud, and I need media, not the mainstream press, but specialized journalists, the ones who write about art crime, historical fraud, people whose words carry weight in the right circles. Can you arrange that, Julian, discreetly, as guests of Madame Cygnus? Julian whistled softly. You want to expose him, live, in front of experts and the press. Elena, that's risky. They tried to erase me. Julian, I said, my voice flat, devoid of heat, just cold purpose. They deserve to be seen exactly as they are, frauds, thieves, and fools. He agreed. The audacity appealed to his own sense of drama. He made the calls, secured the attendees, under the guise of a private, exclusive unveiling of a newly acquired artifact by the mysterious Madame Cygnus. Brenda was becoming increasingly agitated in the days leading up to the meeting. I saw it on the cameras, arguing with Chad, nerves frayed, perhaps sensing something was shifting. but Chad, high on arrogance and the impending windfall, dismissed her fears. The day arrived, clear, cold, fitting. I wasn't there, of course. Elena Vance, the frail aunt, was supposedly having a bad day, resting at home under Brenda's watchful, irritated eye. Madame Cygnus's proxy, a stern-looking associate of Julian's, handled the hotel arrangements, the private room, equipped with hidden microphones and cameras feeding to a secure location, where Julian and I watched. The guests arrived, the forgery experts, looking intrigued, the journalists, scenting a story, chatting quietly, expecting perhaps a slightly eccentric rich woman showing off a new trinket. Then Chad arrived, alone, carrying a locked briefcase, trying to look nonchalant but sweating slightly, eyes darting around. He was shown into the room. The proxy introduced him briefly, our associate who facilitated the acquisition. Chad nodded curtly, placed the briefcase on the table, undid the locks, pulled out the small, leather-bound volume, the poem, my poem. He held it up, as promised, perfect condition. The proxy nodded. Madame Cygnus is unfortunately detained, but she empowered me and her esteemed guests to verify the artifact before finalizing the transaction. He gestured to the experts, who moved closer, adjusting spectacles, pulling out magnifying glasses, their professional curiosity piqued. Chad looked uneasy. Verification, Madame Cygnus assured me. A formality, the proxy interrupted smoothly, given the significance of the piece. One expert, Dr. Aris Thorne, renowned for exposing sophisticated fakes, picked up the volume gently, opened it, his eyes scanned the page, then he looked up, a frown creasing his forehead. He exchanged a look with another expert, Dr. Lena Petrova. She leaned in, examined the binding, the paper. Silence stretched, Chad shifted his weight. Is there a problem? Dr. Thorne looked directly at Chad, his voice quiet but carrying authority. Where did you say you acquired this, mister? He trailed off, waiting for Chad's name, which he hadn't offered. That's confidential, Chad blustered. Client privacy. Dr. Petrova spoke. The paper is wrong, the ink composition, inconsistent with the period, the binding, while skillfully aged, shows signs of modern tooling. She looked at Thorne. It's a forgery, isn't it, Aris? Thorne nodded slowly. A competent one, but undoubtedly a fake. The journalists scribbled furiously. Cameras flashed discreetly. Chad's face drained of colour, panic flared in his eyes. What? No, that's impossible. It's genuine. I have provenance. Perhaps, Thorne said calmly, picking up a folio Julian's team had placed strategically on the table. You could explain how the *genuine* article, documented extensively by its owner, Ms. Elena Vance. He paused for effect and looks like *this. He opened the folio, revealing high-resolution photographs of the real poem, highlighting the very details. I had fed Julian, the marginalia, the specific binding flaw. Chad stared, mouth opening and closing, trapped, exposed. And perhaps, Dr. Petrova added, picking up another file, you can also explain these. She laid out printouts, financial records, loan documents in my name, forged signatures highlighted, copies of the hidden camera footage stills, Chad swapping documents, Brenda manipulating statements. The room was utterly silent, except for the frantic clicking of camera shutters and Chad's ragged breathing. He lunged for the briefcase, for the fake poem, maybe to destroy it, maybe to flee. But Julian's security, quiet men standing near the door, moved swiftly, blocking his path. I believe, the proxy said, his voice cold. That concludes our verification, gentlemen. He nodded to the security team. Detain him, the authorities have been notified, they are on their way. Chad struggled, shouted incoherencies, accusations, threats, but it was useless. He was caught, red-handed, in front of the very people whose opinions could destroy him, utterly. Back at the house, I watched the feed, Julian beside me, a grim satisfaction, settled over me, cold but complete. Brenda packing the living room downstairs. Her phone rang, she answered, listened, her face went white. She collapsed onto the sofa, a strangled sob escaping her lips. She knew it was over. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Chad's arrest made niche headlines. Art fraud ring uncovered. Antiquarian forgery scheme exposed. The journalists present had their story. The experts confirmed the forgeries. My meticulous documentation, the video evidence, the financial trail, it was overwhelming. Chad faced multiple charges: forgery, fraud, theft, conspiracy, facing years in prison. He tried to save himself. He implicated Brenda, fully describing her role, her motivations, her active participation in the gaslighting, the medication tampering, the financial theft. He painted her as the mastermind, driven by resentment. Brenda was arrested too, the loving niece exposed as a cold, calculating predator. The community was shocked. People who knew us couldn't believe it, but the evidence was undeniable. Legal battles followed, civil suits, criminal trials. I pursued every avenue, relentlessly, guided by Julian's lawyers, funded by the recovery of some assets, and the insurance payout for the items deemed lost forever. Some of the stolen documents were recovered through the exposure of the wider network Chad was involved with. Others were gone, vanished into private collections, a permanent scar on my legacy. But I refused to let asterisk them be the final word. With the recovered funds and the damages awarded, I didn't just rebuild my finances, I established something new, the Vance Institute for Document Preservation and Authentication, dedicated to research, training, and exposing forgery, ensuring that others wouldn't suffer the same violation, turning their attempt to erase my legacy into the very thing that cemented it, in a way they never could have imagined. Brenda received a lighter sentence than Chad, due to his testimony, but her reputation was ruined, disinherited, ostracized. She lost everything: her freedom, her future, the family connection she had so viciously exploited. Chad received a lengthy sentence, his arrogance, his greed, leading him directly into the trap I laid. My life is quieter now, different. The trust is gone, replaced by a cautious vigilance, but the fear, the helplessness, they are gone too, replaced by a strength I didn't know I possessed, forged in the fires of betrayal, honed by the ice of righteous fury. They tried to break me, to diminish me, to make me invisible. Instead, they revealed a part of me that even I had kept hidden. The archivist became the architect of their destruction. Was it justice or revenge? Perhaps a bit of both. All I know is I sleep soundly now, surrounded by the true fragments of history, and the knowledge that I fought back, and I won. Transition back to Victoria's eye perspective. Wow, just wow, Elena's story, the sheer calculation, the cold fury, turning her own expertise into a weapon. It's intense, isn't it? Replacing priceless history with fakes, while trying to drive her mad. It's a level of cruelty that's hard to comprehend, especially from family. But Elena, she didn't just crumble, she documented, she planned, she executed. That final scene, the private viewing, turning into a live exposure, it's like something out of a movie, only chillingly real. The way she used their own greed, Chad's arrogance, against them, setting a trap so precise, so perfectly tailored, leveraging her deep knowledge against their shallow ambition. It's a masterclass in turning the tables. And the ending, founding the institute, taking that pain, that violation, and forging something positive, something that protects others. It doesn't erase what happened, but it reclaims the narrative, defines her legacy, on her own asterisk terms, not as a victim, but as a survivor, a fighter, a guardian of truth in more ways than one. It makes you think, doesn't it, about trust, about legacy, about the hidden strengths we all might possess, waiting for the right, or perhaps the terribly wrong, circumstances to emerge. Was her response too harsh, or was it exactly what they deserved? That line between justice and revenge, sometimes it gets blurry, especially when the wounds are so deep. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I truly want to hear your perspective on Alina's actions. And if stories like this, stories of resilience, of fighting back against overwhelming odds, resonate with you, make sure you're subscribed. Hit that notification bell, because there are more stories, just as compelling, just as unbelievable, that I need to share. Thank you for listening, really listening, to Alina's journey. Until next time, stay aware, stay strong.